Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for this question. This question is about a very important institution, a very important company for Fijians and also for the Fijian economy itself, because as we've noted in this Parliament and now outside also, that the tourism sector contributes in excess of about 37% towards our GDP. And of course, it is very critical for us to be able to understand and also appreciate the fact that in order to be able to maintain a sustainable tourism sector, we need to have all the ancillary services that contribute to that sector in place. Therefore, it is very critical for a maritime country like ourselves that we have a very strong and robust national carrier. Should, for example, something happen, if, for example, there are climatic events, you can see that all the foreign airlines always pull out. And when they do pull out, there's nothing left if you don't have a national carrier. Similarly, Madam Speaker, if you look at other countries that have adopted the approach of what they call the completely open skies policy, invariably what happens is that the larger airlines actually come and cannibalize the local airlines, and ultimately the local airlines actually collapse. And so we have been very protective about Fiji Airways from that perspective. So whilst we've allowed a liberalized approach to the open airs policy, we have still got certain restrictions, and I'll explain why in respect of, in particular, to China. However, Madam Speaker, in respect of what the Honourable Member has asked regarding the modernization of our fleet, as we know that a few years ago, in about 4 or 5 years ago, we actually purchased our first Airbus wide-bodied aircraft, which was financed both by German banks, and also the funding was provided by Fijian National Provident Fund, in which FNPF actually got a very good rate of return. Madam Speaker, 3 A330-200 series aircraft were purchased, and then subsequently we obtained and added to our fleet a fourth larger A330-300 series. Madam Speaker, of course, these aircraft actually replaced the 737-800s we had, and also a 767 that was in fact leased at a very astronomical amount by the previous managements, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we're happy to announce also today, as probably has been said also outside Parliament, that Fiji Airways will add 2 interim A330-200 series aircraft this year on short-term lease for 4 years. Madam Speaker, this will enable Fiji Airways to commence the direct flights to Narita, or recommence the flights to Narita, which is going to be 3 times a week. It will also mean we'll increase the frequency of the flights to Singapore. Singapore is doing well, Madam Speaker. Currently it flies twice a week to Singapore, 90 flights directly to Singapore. It increased to 3 times. We've already started now scheduled flights to San Francisco. Currently it's twice a week. It will now increase to 3 times a week, Madam Speaker. And of course we're looking at more opportunities and also pushing more wide-bodied into our traditional ports of Sydney and Auckland, which also gives us more opportunities as far as freight is concerned. So, Madam Speaker, there are the sort of the fleet changes. Of course, as has been announced, that we are also buying 5 new, brand new 737 MAX 8s. Now, these are the 737 new technology. It will also mean, apart from the range, will save a fuel savings of 15%. As anybody who knows about airline companies will know that one of the major cost component of any airline is the fuel. Fuel is a major component of the operational expenses of the airline, and of course it affects your bottom line ultimately. These significant changes, Madam Speaker, will mean that by the end of 2019, Fiji Airways will have one of the world's youngest aircraft fleet in the world. So, Madam Speaker, it's obviously a significant achievement for us. Currently, Madam Speaker, the board of Fiji Airways is looking at further wide-bodied aircraft. And within that speak, you could be looking at the Dreamliners, the 787s. You could also be looking at the A350s from Airbus. This will again give us new opportunities to fly to longer destinations, including making more inroads towards the east coast of North America. Halfway through you could go to destinations like Dallas, Chicago, or even further on. because as you know that currently we fly only to the western seaboard of North America. Of course, we're looking at the Asian markets too to fly further than Singapore. This will present enormous opportunities. But of course, these decisions need to be made wisely with a lot of consultations, because these aircraft don't cost, they're not sort of lying around. We're not buying candy. We're buying actually very expensive equipment. And of course, we need to have the skill sets available too. As far as China is concerned, we are quite keen to fly to Beijing. Currently, we serve the southern part of China. We're flying directly to Hong Kong. The Chinese want to actually have their aircraft fly into Fiji, but they want to have onward rights. And they want to have rights that enable them to pick up people along the way too. This will essentially, Madam Speaker, cannibalize Fiji Airways routes, and we have to protect the Fiji Airways routes. You cannot, for example, have flights coming from Shanghai, Hong Kong, Nandi, Auckland. You can have flights doing Shanghai, Singapore, Nandi, Auckland. Completely eat into our airline. We've had similar offers, of course. Emirates, for example, wanted to do Dubai, Sydney, Nandi. But of course, Madam Speaker, they can do the Dubai-Sydney leg. We're quite happy for them to do that only if they code share. But they could then fly people across for $50, and we can shut down the route between Nandi and Sydney for Fiji Airways. And then, of course, they can pull out whenever they feel like it. We'll then have to restart it ourselves. So we have to be able to be clever. We have to be strategic in respect of how we allow, of course, code sharing in that respect. We have successfully negotiated the new ASA with the Japanese. The Japanese were quite keen. They've given up some of the onward rights that they did have previously, and we've got a good relationship with them. We similarly look forward to forging a good ASA with the Chinese too, to enable us to have our aircraft and code share with them to fly to destinations such as Beijing. We of course need to, given that we're a small airline company, we need to position ourselves and fly to basically hubs. Because when you fly to hubs, Madam Speaker, you're also able to connect to other destinations quite easily. And I've also got over here a list of all the airlines that we currently have interline relationships or also code sharing arrangements with also, Madam Speaker, should the Parliament want to know about it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.